What's up, my Yugioh bros? I'm your host, the one, the only, the RJB0. Welcome to Yugioh and Business Casual, coming at you with my new haircut in my new place in Bellingham. I just moved in a few hours ago. Now, there has been this really obnoxious trend in the online Yugioh community recently, and that is people making forums about how to remove luck as a factor from the game, either by making new games where luck does not exist, or by trying to find fresh formats for Yu-Gi-Oh! That reduce the factor of luck. Now you might wonder why something so seemingly reasonable would be annoying to me, and the reason is because, as I see it, in the aggregate scope of the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, luck does not exist. Now, before we move on with this discussion, there are three important things to discuss, which are the definitions of luck, probability, and fortune. Fortune is lovely. It is a subtle and nuanced word, and I absolutely love the thing because it can describe any number of things, but it all kind of boils down to how well things have gone in your past. If you are a fortunate person, it means that for the most part, things have gone well in your past. If something is unfortunate, that means that it hasn't been going so hot. In Yu-Gi-Oh! We can define this on a number of levels: your tournament record, your win-loss ratio at a certain tournament, and most importantly, fortune doesn't mean that things necessarily happened by chance. When you say that in a tournament you were unfortunate, that could include the problems and consistency that you built into your own deck. Probability is another great word for Yu-Gi-Oh! Probability is the likelihood that something is going to happen. On a micro scale, it is a fairly accurate prediction of what is going to happen next, and on a macro scale, it is a good model for how things go generally. For instance, if 60% of your deck is monster cards, then the chances are very high that the next card you are going to draw will be a monster. And on the long-term scale, that means that you probably drew into monsters 60% of the time. Probability drives how we build our decks. It drives our ratios, it drives our plays based on what is the likelihood that the next card we draw will be a certain card that we are looking for, a certain type of card that we are looking for. Probability is an objective concept that we use all the time in Yu-Gi-Oh! Luck, on the other hand, is a terribly silly thing. The concept of luck is that some outside force is causing things to go well or poorly for you, and that somehow this is a predictive factor. Oh, I am a really unlucky person, therefore I am going to be unlucky in the future. My first issue with luck being talked about in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is it gives bad players an excuse to not improve their game. They'll look back at bad fortune and say, oh, I've just been unlucky all day because I've been drawing poorly. While that could be true at a single event, if it happens at event after event after event, it is vastly more likely that you are making inconsistent decks, or you are making plays that leave you to a really bad chance at drawing into what you need. If a person on whom this bad fortune has befallen thinks to themselves, oh, I'm a great player, I've just had bad luck, then they think there's something inherently wrong with the game that makes them bad, as opposed to their own utter lack of skills. The other issue I have with it is that they think it's a predictive factor, that going into a tournament, oh, I am an unlucky person, or I have done something to cause this karma to come down on me, that I will draw poorly all this tournament, and all the idiot noobs are going to draw amazingly this tournament, and then they go in thinking that they're going to draw poorly, and that games are going to go unluckily for them, and with that in their brain, they end up making tons of misplays because they're trying to account for some kind of luck force in their game. And then naturally, things are going to go poorly for them, and they are going to have really bad fortune, and then they are going to continue to blame their luck for their lack of success. It is just a problematic concept. So So let's take some claims by people who claim that luck is a major factor in Yu-Gi-Oh! The first claim is that clearly luck exists because Lightsworns are a luck-based deck. Now that is, once again, focusing on this problematic idea that luck is some kind of predictive factor, that if you're playing Lightsworns, you better be a lucky person because you have to use that luck to your advantage to make sure that in your next game you mill well? The idea that Lightsworns are a luck-based deck is a little bit silly. They are a probability-based deck. They are absolutely a probability-based deck, and the reason why we say they're a luck-based deck is because they're incredibly sacky, because the probability of their getting the things they need is, for the most part, fairly low. That is why they bring in modifying cards, which exchange the probability factor for slightly more consistent factors. For instance, Eclipse Wyvern reduces the probability that you're going to mill a JD over drawing a JD. So yes, Lightsworns is a probability-based deck. If Lightsworns were a totally luck-based deck and luck were some kind of predictive factor, then we would see Lightsworns topping. Because if Lightsworns open amazingly well, then they win. And if somebody is incredibly lucky, then they're probably going to top a tournament with Lightsworns at some point in this format. However, even though there are players playing Lightsworns, Lightsworns have not topped because luck is not a factor. You cannot rely on yourself being a lucky person in order to get to the top of an event. Then there are the people who say that, oh, well, if your opponent just happens to draw better, or top deck the right card, or mill better, then they're clearly going to win, which means that it's a luck-based game because they could draw better or top deck better at any time. So on a micro scale, it is arguable that luck exists. I don't think it does because I don't believe in luck as a predictive force. On a macro level, however, luck is totally non-existent. Maybe one person in a month's worth of tournaments is just going to top deck their way to the top. If it seems that a person is drawing well all the time, it is much more likely that they have made an incredibly consistent deck than that they have just happened to draw well, game after game after game. Once again, this harkens back to this concept of good players who just happen to be unlucky. It is minorly likely that out of all the hundreds of thousands of people who play the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, there is one person who, based on probability alone, draws well a massive percentage of the time. In a similar way, it is plausible that there is a person out there who draws horribly 100% of the time. The likelihood that there are many people like that, and more importantly, the likelihood that it is you who are like that, is incredibly low. Finally, there is the argument that when two equally matched decks go against each other, whoever happens to draw better wins. Now, of course, this seems reasonable in our heads because we think if these are two equally matched decks in terms of power in general, then naturally it comes down to whoever got the better hand. But think about this. Decks are all made differently. Everybody has a different deck. People net deck at smaller tournaments, but for the most part, at higher tier play, net decking is not a thing. Even if it were, the likelihood that the two people playing the exact same deck at a tournament going against each other is incredibly low. But for the sake of argument, we're going to talk about two of the same deck playing against each other, and the idea being that these two players are somehow equally matched, and whoever gets the better hand is going to win. Even in this case, it is not luck that determines who wins. In every scenario, there is a set of cards that is better to have than another set of cards. For instance, in a Burning Abyss mirror match, if you are the Burning Abyss player going first, the ideal hand is one that allows you to put a couple Burning Abyss monsters on the board and a few traps. The ideal responding hand to that person going first is a way of removing spell or traps and a way of putting monsters and spells and traps of your own on the board. Even if two players are playing the exact same version of Burning Abyss, that same version of Burning Abyss is going to be better at one of those things than the other. It is going to be more likely to open with one of those hands than the other, which means that it is down to probability and not luck as to who wins that game, because whoever is in the scenario in which their deck does better is going to win. So even in the concept of a head-to-head now in this moment matchup, luck is not a thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's really down to which deck more consistently gives you the cards that are best in that scenario. Now, it may not seem like that while you're in the game. It may seem like your opponent every once in a while just gets the perfect hand. But in a more long-term scenario, for instance, an entire tournament, the deck that is more likely to give you the winning hand or the cards that you need or the cards that are best to respond to a certain situation is almost invariably going to be the deck that wins. So please stop talking about how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a game of luck. It is not a game of luck. It is a game of probability when you are building your deck. It is a game of fortune when you are considering your tournament. And it is once again a game of probability when you are making your plays. Luck is superstitious nonsense that we use as an excuse to not become better players and make better decks and make better plays. So there is my rant for the week. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section below. And of course, subscribe for more deck discussion, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Thank you guys for watching, and let me know if you guys think that luck actually exists in the game, and argue with me in the comment section below. This is what we live for. Thank you guys for watching. I'm your host, the one, the only, the RJB0, and I got a jet.